If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Today's guest again is Al Dunning, who's a horseman extraordinaire, I think, from the US. We're going to have a chat to him. But before we do, I just want to have a quick chat about values. And at International Horse College, horse welfare and safety are of utmost importance when humans have any interaction with horses. Within all the courses at International Horse College, only safe methods are utilised that promote safe and humane ways of interaction between horses and humans. So we only support safe methods of educating riders, handlers and trainers at internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Now, Al, how are you going today? We're going to talk about logical problem solving. And Al, I think, you know, one thing that I do like about your training methods is you talk about them in such a logical fashion. And I find that with a couple of really good horsemen, you know, it's just, you just go, yeah, but it's logical. It's not sort of some fancy secret. It's logical, but you've got to have that common sense and that experience and the knowledge to work it out, I think. So, yes, if you can teach us a little bit more about logical problem solving today, that would be brilliant.
Well, thank you, Glenys. I've been training horses as a professional now for over 50 years. So, you know, and I know it's got to be logical to the people I teach. It
Yes.
definitely has to be logical to the horses that I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, no, that makes sense. I like the way you explain it, but let's talk, and it's a problem. This first one we're going to talk about picking up correct lead or picking up leads. It's a problem for people that don't know how to do it. And I know that you teach quite a few people and you have taught, you know, many, many people of all different sorts of levels. How many world championships are we up to at the moment, Al?
Well, right now we're just about 50 world and reserve world champions. So, and I'm hoping for more.
Yes, and I think that, you know, that just shows your experience in teaching such a wide variety of riders that, you know, you can start them off at a certain level, but we certainly know where they're aimed. But this whole problem about picking up leads, what have you got to say about that?
Well, you know, Glenys, it seems to be an ongoing problem. It has to do with a lot about collection, you know, and a lot of people try to, you know, make a horse take a lead that isn't natural sometimes for them, because horses have a tendency to want to take the front lead, and a lot of times people take the leads on a turn, so they'll want to take the front lead, but because I call it horses are bilateral, the more you turn to the left, the more the hip wants to go to the right. Mm-hmm. And so it's a process that you have to first teach a horse to move off your legs properly. So it's part of collection. It's part of controlling the horse's front, so the front doesn't go in the direction you want it to, you know, in the process, meaning that if I'm going to take the left lead, really I want to keep the front very straight, and I want the rear end of the horse to go to the left. So the horse must yield off my right leg. And, you know, since it's an up and down motion, really the lope or the gallop is a round, forward, rolling kind of motion that's up and down. So rather than, you know, people have a tendency to turn and trot into the lead a lot, you know, when they're first starting a horse.
Yes. Which
surely isn't bad, but to get a true quality departure, the hip has to take the lead first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I teach is that you should take your hands to the outside. Let's say if you're going to take the left lead, your hands should both stay to the right, maintaining the horse's shoulder to the right. The horse should yield off your right leg without moving to the left, its entire body. You just want the hip to move to the left, and then obviously you add a cluck or a little extra leg for forward motion. Then actually the hip, the inside hind or left hind leg, should initiate the lead. So that's what we teach, and it takes a person a while to understand that the hind end is the driver of the horse and not the front end. So turning isn't always the right process. Now, Glenys, in another drill that I do is that I'll take a horse and, go down the fence line, use a fence line to do it, and then, I'll stop and I'll back a few steps and turn into the fence, add my outside, let's say I turn into the right, I'll use my left leg, and as the horse turns, the fence causes a barrier which lifts the horse's front and allows the hind leg, which would now be the right hind leg because I'm turning to the right, as the lead leg. And that'll teach the horse to move off your left leg and go into the lope properly. So that's another great process that we do. But, if a horse has had its proper basics of, learning leg yield exercises like two tracking, side passing, things like backing, like that, where you have plenty of control of the front end and the sides of the horse, it makes it more difficult to teach that lead.
Okay. I'm trying to work out that exercise, of just sort of going and then towards the fence, but then turning.
Yeah. Another good process you can do to pick up that left lead, let's say, is to stay off the rail a little ways, kind of take your left leg and press the horse toward the rail, so you're kind of like two tracking toward the rail. That means forward and over. Then shift your hands toward the rail to hold the horse down, not taking the nose to the rail, because we want to keep the front straight. If you pull the nose to the right when you're trying to take the left lead, that promotes the left shoulder's action. And we don't want to do that. We want to limit the left shoulder action by holding our hands away from the rail to the rail, and then taking that left leg off, adding the right leg, which moves the hip to the left, and the horse departs on the left lead. And that's another good, I call it walking to the rail on the departure.
Okay. Now, I know that, in Western, we don't want a horse to be high-headed. You talk about a high-headed horse, and you want the horse to be relaxed. You tell me if I've got it wrong, because my background's a little different to, it's more dressage. But from what I understand, we want the horse to be relaxed. So we want the pole to be, like, I don't know whether you say level with the wither, but we certainly don't want the horse to be high-headed or have his head up. What can we do there to get the horse relaxed and have a lower outline, a lower frame?
Well, I think whether you're an English rider, a dressage rider, or a Western rider, it doesn't make any difference. I think for a horse to, let's say, take that departure properly, or to be more level in the head, it has a lot to do with working the horse's hind end and not working the horse's front.
Okay.
And so, a horse that flexes at the pole, even if they raise the pole slightly, will have a better tendency to work off their hind end than a horse that is pushing against your hands into the bridle. Now, once a horse learns to, let's say, flex at the pole, then there's got to be a give and take motion with your hands. You got to give back and reward a horse for what it does correctly. Glenys, to get my horses lower and more relaxed, I spend a lot of time pulling single rein and pulling them around in circles and teaching them to give not only their chin, but their poll and their neck, and relaxing the shoulders. And after I pull a horse around enough, the horses will have a tendency, once they do give, they'll want to relax and drop their head, and then I give them slack and teach a horse that when they give, I give back. And that has a tendency to lower the horse's head and make them, like you said, more relaxed. Most high-headed horses are either one of two things. They're either a horse that, has no discipline and no give to the bridle, or sometimes they're conformationally built to be a little higher-headed, which is okay. We don't want to change that, but just like you said, relaxing a horse will make them naturally, even a horse that has a little foul conformation, let's say, has a little more upright in the neck, will still make them relax and flex and want to lower. Horses, even a high-headed horse can eat grass, right?
Yes.
So we must remember that. And when they're eating grass, they have their head down and they're relaxed and they are conformationally built so they can. So every horse can break at the poll and relax their neck and their withers to the point of being lower than even sometimes than their conformation lends it.
I'm still laughing about that. Even a high-headed horse can eat grass. We like to come up with all the excuses in the world why my horse is different. My horse can't do this and my horse can't do that. But when you start talking about high-headed horses eating grass, yes, I understand. Yeah. I'm sure you would have come across, not just quite a few different horses, but quite a few different owners that you need to train as well. So I think you must have developed a good style to be able to communicate with them as well.
Well, when a horse, most high-headed horses are ridden by people that don't use their legs properly, and being a dressage rider as you are, and the importance of leg control and rounding a horse's back so the horse relaxes their front end, their shoulders, their neck, and their poll, and their jaw. If you want anybody that's listening to this that starts to back up a horse and it's all in their hands, all they have to do is quit moving their hands and start moving their legs at the same time, and a horse will give it the pull better. So that is the crux of what we try to teach is that you at least ought to be 50-50 hands and legs.
Yep.
Going forward or going backwards or moving to the side.
What about when the horse is on a circle and they want to duck in on the circle? What can we do to correct that problem?
That's the same kind of thing we're talking about is that, correct forward motion is in a real straight line, and that sometimes is very difficult for people to understand. They'll try to do all kinds of things to a horse. The very first thing we want to train a horse to do is align their body in a straight line and go forward from head to tail. And when you start circling, a lot of times people will list and they'll put their weight slightly to the inside of the circle to try to help the horse to turn, and it does them detriment rather than trying to lead the horse slightly to the inside, moving the head slightly to the inside, but keeping the inside shoulder up. Most horses, you hardly ever see a horse, Glenys, you've ridden a lot, and you understand the more you circle a horse, the more a horse wants to cut to the inside of the circle. Very seldom, unless it's a very poorly broke horse, does a horse circling want to go to the outside of the circle.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a saying, strong riders ride to the outside, weak riders ride to the inside. And that means that you should keep the inside shoulder up. Horse should look slightly into the inside of the circle. So let's say the circle should be a perfect arc. Like the head should be on the circle, the shoulder should be on the circle, and the hip on the circle. So if you have a horse that wants to duck to the inside, take your both hands to the outside, and keep the nose slightly to the inside, but kind of ride with your legs and keep the inside shoulder up. And that will do that. And, if your horse is very difficult doing that, maintain that arc to the inside and walk your horse in a reverse arc circle to the outside enough till the horse starts to understand how to align his body.
We try and get our horses even on both sides. But what about backing up? If the horse won't back up straight, are they telling us something, or what can we do to fix it if they back up crooked? You say go straight and you sit there and you look and you think everything's correct, straight, ask the horse to go backwards and they've drifted off to the right or drifted off to the left. What can we do there?
Glenys, the first thing a rider normally does that it doesn't have proper discipline with their legs and hands is if the horse's rear end starts back into the right, they kick it with the right foot.
Yes.
And they say, I'm trying to hold your rear end over. It's hard to control a horse by doing that. So, Glenys, I teach that a horse is like a three-wheel cart. Mm-hmm. The back end is basically fixed with two wheels, so the back end shouldn't move much. The front end should rotate and be able to spin, turn, go in a different direction, roll back, whatever like that. So the access is off the back end. So if your horse starts backing crooked and his hip is backing to the right, I simply move the front over in alignment with the hind end so that the horse now is backing straight. Align the front rather than trying to align the back. And what you'll get is you'll get a horse that understands that he's supposed to, keep his hip within his shoulders, basically. So instead of using your leg to straighten the horse up, merely just move the whole front over, align with the back, and then re-back. Most horses back crooked because riders are pulling stronger with one hand or the other, mm-hmm. or use one leg stronger than the other. So we got to make sure that everything's equal when we back our horses up too.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. And you talked about the circles, and I know that you said that when a horse does duck in on the circles, that we've got to keep the inside shoulder up. We've got to keep the horse looking in the direction of the circle, just following that shape. What about, you asked the horse's nose in the turns, reverses, whatever, and what happens if the horse is not following their nose in the turns?
It's another process where you have to teach a horse and you have to teach a rider to learn how to make a perfect circle. A perfect circle is, let's say if we take a 12-foot circle, the head should be on the circle, mm-hmm. so looking slightly to the inside. The shoulder should be on the circle, so the shoulder can't be leaning to the inside. And the hip should be on the circle, so the horse is walking in an alignment mm-hmm. of following the arc around. Yep. Horses that want to have a tendency to pull their head to the outside, what's happening there is usually the rider's using too much outside leg and maybe too much outside rein. I've got a thing that I try to teach Glenys called the triangle hand position. That means if a horse is turning to the left, the inside hand should be against the neck and slightly up, and the outside hand should be out to the outside and slightly away with equal rein pressure. When you have that, you have a triangle between your hands and down to the bit. So now with that triangle hand position, the inside rein controls the shoulder and the outside rein controls the hip. And with that, you'll never have a horse that reverses the arc or looks to the outside when turning to the inside. It really helps a lot.
Yep.
And just remember, everything a horse does is through repetition. And if we repetitively do wrong, that means we try to force a horse to turn off the neck rein too much. Obviously the horse's head is going to go in the opposite direction because we're forcing the horse. If we teach the horse that every time he turns to the left, he must follow his nose to the left and the outside neck rein should be light, then the horse will start following his nose much better.
Yes. Yeah, as you said, it's logical. I'm just going through my mind, and it's amazing training horses English Western. It's got to be logical. The horse has got to understand it, and as you say, if you're training people, the people have got to understand it. Yeah.
Well, there's a way that the lightness of a person's. There's a time to pull your horse, but most of the time, the lighter you are with your hands and the stronger you are with your legs, the better the horse will respond. Mm-hmm. And most riders ride the opposite, stronger with hands and weaker with legs. So, as you know, in dressage, doesn't lend itself to a very pliable horse if you're too firm with your hands and don't have any direction with your legs, riding the horse from the back to the front rather than the front to the back.
Yes, yeah. Tell us a little bit about bitting, like horses that chomp at the bit. Just explain what you mean by chomping and tell us what we can do for that horse that's chomping at the bit.
Well, Glenys, a lot of people will put a bit on a horse that the horse doesn't really palate very well.
Okay.
And, you have to train a horse's mouth. You have to train a horse to take a pull. You have to train a horse to give their pull. All those things just aren't natural, when a horse is just running out. We have to train these horses to do this, but we also have to train a willingness into the horse, too. Some people will put a bit on a horse and think that bit is a controlling factor, and it's not. It's the processes that you do that teach a horse control.
Yes.
And then horses will become nervous, or they'll dislike the taste of the bit, and they'll open and close their mouth, or what we call chomp the bridle. I'm going to tell you something real quick that's real interesting. The vaquero style of training was the training that came up through the Spaniards, that came up through Mexico into Southern California and became very popular, and is still popular today. And the vaqueros that trained in those days believed that when you pull on a horse initially, that the horse will resist. And we know that's the way it is because they don't understand. At that time, it's okay if a horse opens their mouth because they're resisting and pushing against the bit. As the horse is pulled from side to side or pulled around many times, the horse becomes softer in the neck and softer in the poll. If the horse starts to flex the poll, they'll naturally close their mouth and be better with the bit. So that was the vaquero method that they taught along the way, that it was okay for horse, when they are first being taught, to open their mouth so that they'll learn to give their jaw. Then once the horse gives their jaw, the next thing they do is give the poll. After they give the poll, they close the mouth. And then we've got to release right there and tell them that that's correct. A lot of the bits that we use today are made of not what I call cold steel or true iron. And a lot of the bits today, stainless bits and such like that, don't have the same palatability or the same taste to a horse. And most of the bits that came from the past all were made of cold steel or what's called sweet iron.
Okay.
And then a lot of those bits were inlaid with copper. And the copper in that bit caused salivation. And the salivation caused the horse to have a softer mouth and want to have a tendency to, like the bit better, palate the bit better, and hold the bit better in their mouth. And so that's another thing. Most of the cheap bits that are bought today are made of the best steel. And we know that for a fact. And you can't expect a horse to palate that bit the same as he would a quality bit with cold steel.
That combination, the combination of the metal. So it's the combination of the metal that's going to make the horse salivate more.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And many of the bits, the quality bits had copper inlaid in the mouthpieces of the day. And a lot of those, that was one of the things that horses seem to really like is the copper. So, obviously the bits that I use, many of them have copper in the mouth.
Yeah. Do you start with the snaffle and then go to the curb? Tell us about how you transition then. What are you looking for in a horse that's going well in a snaffle? When do you transition them to the curb bit?
A lot of riders today and all over the world will keep a horse in a snaffle for a long period of time. Again, I learned the vaquero method basically, and the vaquero method said that, once I ride a horse in a snaffle and teach them all the basics, teach them to stop well, back well, turn well, control, flex at the pole, all that type of stuff. By the time a horse was in their 3-year-old year, sometimes we would transcend and ride him in a hackamore for a while, which is a rawhide piece of equipment that has no bit in the mouth and, is ridden with horsehair reins. And, it was there for to get the bit out of the horse's mouth for a while. It was a transition piece of equipment to teach the neck rein. It's exactly what it was. So that was the transition, not straight from the snaffle to the curved bit. Today, because, that is a little bit of a dying art, I wrote a book on it a while back called The Art of Hackamore Training.
Okay.
And hopefully that made a difference for some people, because then taught them how important that transition was. But when you get the horse to a certain stage in the snaffle bit, the horses become a little bit dull in the snaffle. And then people have a tendency to get rougher, to try to make the horse do the things that it once did or that they hoped it did. And instead, there's a time, if a horse is well trained in doing the basics along their way in their 3 or 4 year old year, even if you don't go to the hackamore, you're ready to go to a curved bit and have the leverage using the chin groove of the horse and the pressure on the bars of the horse to keep the horse soft in the bridle and keep the horse flexed at the pole and keep the horse having that kind of willingness. So, that would be the transfer between snaffle. A lot of times people, including myself, will ride a horse in what's called a shank snaffle. So it's a curb bit, but it has a snaffle mouthpiece in it, the same as the snaffle bit you've been riding the horse in. So it's a little bit easier transition because they don't have a bar across the tongue. Instead, they have the same broken mouthpiece that the horse has been used to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This book, The Art of Hackamore Training, can people still get that? Is it still in print?
Oh, yeah, sure. You can get it through my company, ADTAC, at aldunning.com.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful book. It is the best-selling book of Western Horseman magazine at this time.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, horses, and this is a problem, it's not particularly a Western problem, it's horses that want to keep going towards the gate. You're trying to do a circle, they come around, they fall out, they drift towards the gate one way, then when they're over the other side of the circle, they're drifting towards the gate. This has got to be a common problem.
Absolutely.
What do you recommend that we do, we'll talk about what causes it, but then what can we do to fix this?
Well, again, the process is making sure your horse understands the direct pull, understands that you can control its outside shoulder with the outside leg and outside rein by, side passing, two tracking, doing all the leg yield exercises that you know about, I know about, and that everybody should know about. Mm-hmm. But here's pretty typically what happens. A horse comes around the corner, they see the gate on the right.
Yep.
So they start to drift to the right. So the rider pulls the left rein, and the horse drifts harder to the right because now the shoulder is leading to the right side.
Yep.
Now the head's to the left, but a horse can run sideways really fast. So what you got to do then is in concert with the inside rein, you must use the outside rein and outside leg and limit the horse's bend. Obviously, controlling the horse to the point of stopping is important at that time, and turning away from the magnetic gate, let's say, that is attracting the horse. Yep. Or the opening in the arena. It's the same with a horse that spooks, Glenys. Let's say you're riding towards something, mm-hmm. and the horse wants to spook at something on the right. It wants to go to the left hard. Well, people pull the nose to the right at the spooking thing, which makes the horse even goes faster away. Then the controls come from the outside of the horse. If we remember in our brain that horses, when they're straight, are usually in better control than horses that is in a bend. So the straighter we keep our horse, when it gets out of control, the better they'll flex at the pole, and the easier it is to control the hind end of the horse, which really that's where the whole process is the problem. And everybody always goes to the front end to try to fix it, and it's really trying to control the back end and get everything straight, slowed down. So my process would be, if my horse was spooking away from the right gate, instead of just pulling its head to the right, I would kick it up fairly straight. I'd rock both hands. I would rock the bit across the horse's mouth and try to get the horse to flex the pole, slow down, and then once I got control of the horse, I would probably continue to make some circles until the horse got better and better understanding. And, Glenys, a lot of people, the problem with the gate is the horse has been attracted to the gate because the people ride out the gate. And,
Yes.
if you'll just wear a little shoe leather out and get off at the far side of the arena and lead them out the gate, or even take to the process of taking a halter with you and tying the horse on the other side of the arena until it's comfortable over there, and maybe lead it out at a different gate or a different position, and not tell it, hey, when all the pressure's off and everything else and no training's happening, you head to the barn, so you got to take that out of the horse. You have to say, hey, the happy place is in the arena, and the comfortable place is in the arena, and then you've got to actually think that in your head. Have some other processes to be able to teach the horse that the arena is the good place, and really going out, you should probably be off and leading rather than riding out the gate.
Yes. No, I understand that. And I think, just that, I like the wearing out a bit of shoe leather, get off your horse over the other side. And so the horse is looking for somewhere else in the arena as the good place, rather than just, let's get out the gate, let's just get out of here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, we might have a young horse and call it, just holding its regular rhythm, correct tempo, but a horse that doesn't rate his speed or runs off. Tell us a bit about the terminology, what you mean by rating the speed and running off.
We all want a horse that can go like a car, meaning that in the lowest gear, the car goes very slow, and as you shift more, the car goes faster. And you get to the point where you want to slow down, you should be able to slow down, even to the point of necessary stop. And so as we train a horse, we got to train them through those gears. We want to be able to teach a horse when it goes that horse has what we call rates at speed. You and I have talked a lot about flexing at the pole, and people wonder why we do that. A lot of the would-be horsemen, they all say, well, it's not necessary for a horse to flex at the pole, but it is, because the mouth connects to the pole connects to the withers connects all the way down through the spine to the dock of the tail and controls the back end of the horse. So the more we have a horse that gives its jaw and gives its pole and flexes its neck, the more control you have over the back end, which is the driver of the horse. So as we speed up, we teach a horse as we speed up. When we pick up our reins, the horse should slow down, again in concert to the amount of pressure you've added to the bridle. And that's a very important part. Too many people want to go too fast, too soon in a horse's training. And, I'm a proponent of doing what you should do and not waiting forever to go faster. But I'm also a proponent of knowing your horse and knowing when he's ready to go faster and be able to stay under control and relaxed. Most horses, as you stated earlier, that want to get away, get out of control, have a problem rating their speed, it's strictly a relaxation problem. So doing lots of circles, turning into the fence, teaching a horse to flex at the pole, teaching a horse to back up really good, will keep a horse from wanting to run away with you or, get out of control or push against the bridle and raise their head up and, absolutely not, respond to the pickup of the reins. So, Glenys, I learned real early that when a horse wants to go forward, to fix, a horse should never have unrequested forward motion.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that I should ask the horse to go forward. That's what we should do. The horse shouldn't overwhelmingly, uncontrollably want to go forward.
Yep.
So what we learned is when a horse takes a wrong step forward, we should turn the front. So you actually take the front foot from going straight ahead to the side, which will normally slow a horse down. There's a process that we learned training young horses a long time ago that came from the Vaquero method called doubling, where if a horse wants to charge forward, you reach down, take the slack out of the rein, pull their head around your leg, and actually make them in a turn. That's called doubling. And then the next time he does it, you turn in the opposite direction. And pretty soon, he learns to, control off of one rein or the other, moving side to side rather than, forcefully forward.
Yeah. Al, this is where, like you were saying about you don't want to ask the horse too soon. People are in a hurry. They want to get there. And it's not that you don't want to get there because, 50 world and reserve champions, I think, you obviously know where you're headed. But that's your eye as a horseman that can say, no, we can't take the horse any further today. That's enough for today. We still have that goal of the World Championships, but for today, that's enough for that horse. And
Well, part of learning how to train is making sure you have the proper amount of time to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
But most young trainers need, moreover than that, they must learn when to quit. When a horse thinks he's accomplished something, when he feels comfortable, when he's relaxed, things like that. Never get into a fight with a horse. Never get a horse too hot. Never get a horse mad. Never get mad at a horse. Those kind of things have to be in your repertoire to be a good horseman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. One last question, Al, before you go. Horses that are hard to bridle. There's obviously a reason that they're hard to bridle, but what do we do with them? What's the best method?
Well, most people don't know how to put on a bit properly, number one. And some horses are afraid of their head. So obviously the first process is to be able to halter a horse properly and make the horse like to have a halter on, want to have your companionship, want to lower their head into the halter, put their head through the nose part of the halter. I mean, that makes it real simple. If you can't halter a horse properly, you shouldn't be putting a bridle on him yet.
Okay.
So that's first. The second part is making your horse, like your companionship a little bit, meaning that the more you rub their neck and rub their poll and rub their nose, the lower their head gets. I've seen some very small people be able to bridle a very tall horse, and it's because they're patient. They have to be. They can't reach up and get that horse. The horse has to lower the head. But by holding the bit in your fingers and inserting your thumb in the side of the mouth, cracks the mouth wide enough to allow the bit to go through without banging against the teeth. And that is such an important part that people forget. They try to force the horse to open their mouth by putting the bit against the teeth, and that really makes the horse resist rather. But by inserting your thumb in the corner of the mouth, there's no teeth in that. It's called the bars of the horse's mouth. It doesn't hurt your thumb, but it does crack the mouth slightly and allow the bit to, slide into the mouth properly. And Glenys, it's just as important when taking the bit off. So when you take the bit off, you should, make sure you unhook your curb strap or your throat latch and slide the head stall over and let the horse open his mouth to drop the bit. Be patient right there and teach him that that's the release, the relaxation part too.
Yeah. Look, I like the way you've broken that down, even to the point where you're saying learn how to put the halter on first. Before you put the bridle on, make sure you can put the halter on correctly. Otherwise, you shouldn't be putting the bridle on if you can't put the halter on. Yep.
Everything we teach a horse has to have basics or a background, right? So, that part of haltering a horse has so much to do with how they react to their ears, how they react to their mouth, how they react to their muzzle, and what they do with their neck. So that's just an important part of the process.
Yep. Al, it's been wonderful talking to you again. It's just been great, and I think you've just, you're doing some logical problem solving. You're thinking about it from the horse's point of view, both short-term and long-term, So short-term, what the horse needs right now, but long-term, let's see if we can get this horse to the World Championships. Short-term, long-term, but you're also thinking about training people to think that way as well. And I think that's part of your credibility as a horseman. I think that's really good. Al, if people would like to contact you, and especially if they'd like to look at that book too and buy that book, The Art of Hackamore Training, or any of the others that you've got, and you've got them on your website, which is aldunning.com, is the best way to contact you through the website?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
You can either contact me through the website at aldunning.com, aldunning.com, or at my email is al, my name, al, at aldunning.com. It's very simple. And, I write for many magazines. I love doing these horse chats with you. And, we've written 5 books with Western Horseman magazine about processes of training, and we just enjoy the whole thing.
Okay. And if you like to go to Horse Chats as well, you could go to Horse Chats, and you could probably just search for Al Dunning, or I think even now if you talk about logical problem solving, or even if you search for Hackamore, you'd probably find Al as well. And have a look through the other guests, but certainly go and have a look at Al, and all his contact details will be at the bottom of that page. So look forward to catching up with you again, Al. I think when you come and you talk and you've had so much experience, we've just got to keep listening. And every time you come on, you're talking about something different, the same probably underlying message, but always just something different and different techniques and different things to think about. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Well, you're more than welcome. It's an honor to be on your show.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.